Yo, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is your boy Jay, bringing us a brand new video, and in today's video, we are going to be doing Week 3 NFL game predictions. Last week, Week 2 was a pretty good week. I went 11-5 again in my game predictions, bringing me to 22-10 for the season. 11-5 in both Week 1 and Week 2. I said last week I was going to do better. I did not. I didn't do bad. I think 11-5 is still pretty good, but this week I am going to be doing a lot better. I'm hoping to get a minimum of 13 right. That'd be my goal. Ideally, is 13-3 this week. We'll see though. I'm feeling pretty good about these predictions though, so we'll talk about it. 11-10 is my record right now though, and I'm hoping to keep at least the double-digit wins going per week. I think I set a goal for myself at bare minimum of 10 predictions right a week every week. Hopefully that is what we'll keep doing. Hopefully we get better actually, and like I said this week, getting to 13-3 would be a good spot. And yeah, so that's my goal. I know I didn't get any videos out last week besides my record prediction video. I'm going to try to get videos out this week. I've been kind of busy. I'm going to see, but this is my record prediction video for this week. Another thing too, I'm going to start doing my locks of the week this week as well, which is just one game where I think it's locked or one team winning over another. I'm going to keep scoring my record predictions on my locks in case there's an upset. I'm 2-0 right now. I know I didn't include them in the videos, but week 1 my lock was the Ravens over the Texans. Week 2 my lock was the Bills over the Raiders. So I'm going to start including my lock of the week each week, which is a team I think is a guaranteed win over another team, and we will talk about that lock in this video as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys do enjoy, but without further ado, let's just get to the video. Starting off in the AFC column, we have the Titans at the Browns. Titans coming off of a big overtime win versus the Chargers to go to 1-1. The Browns coming off of a very surprising, or at least I thought a very surprising loss to the Steelers. Now the Browns having a major setback to this offense and a devastating Nick Chubb knee injury, which looked horrible. I would not be surprised if he's out for at least the next year and a half. It was an awful injury and hoping for a quick recovery for him. So now without Nick Chubb, and in week 1, they lost Jack Conklin, their right tackle, which was another major loss. So this offense hasn't looked great. Deshaun Watson hasn't looked great. He's looked very sloppy and very inaccurate. Now, I have been a Deshaun Watson believer in the sense that he was away from football for like 2 years. He's in a new system now and all that. And I do think he deserves a few more weeks. I'm getting a little more nervous about it just because he has looked pretty bad. But I do think if you give him some time and give him a few more weeks, hopefully he will kind of develop and get back into that group he was in Houston. Titans, they've looked all right. Defensively, they're a very good team. Offensively, they've had their struggles. And I'm going to go with the Browns in this one. I know they had a pretty bad loss last week, but, a couple of that, like the interception, the pick six was kind of fluky. And I hopefully, this offense kind of gets rolling. They are against a very good Titans defense, but we'll see what happens. But I do have the Browns winning this one and going back to 2-1. Next up, we have the Jags versus the Texans. Texans looked all right. CJ Stroud's actually looked really impressive. He's looked great throwing the ball. The defense is all right. The Jags coming off of a 17-9 loss versus the Chiefs. I think that was a very underwhelming loss for them. A lot of hype, coming into that game for both teams. It was a rematch of the divisional round last year, and I think a lot of people actually had the Jags winning that game, but unfortunately, the Jags did lose 17-9, and the big question there is the offensive stability. The defense actually looked pretty good last week, but the offensive line for the Jags looked really bad. Chris Jones was pressuring Trevor Lawrence a lot. Like I said, the offensive line looked bad, and really there was just no offensive stability there. I do think they rebound versus the Texans, though. Texans are not that great of a team. Like I said, though, they have looked better than I thought, and I think a lot of people have thought, but I don't see them going into Jacksonville and winning. I think the Jags get the dub versus the Texans. Next up, we have the Colts going into Baltimore. Baltimore has looked really, really solid for the first 2 weeks. Last week, they went into Cincinnati and beat the Bengals, a very banged-up Baltimore team. They were without their 2 key offensive line pieces, Ronnie Stanley and Chris Linderbaum, and then Marcus Williams was out in the secondary, and they still went in and beat the Cincinnati team. Very underrated win. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it this week, which is kind of surprising to me, but I thought it was a really big win for Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team to go into Cincinnati and advance to 2-0. The Colts have actually looked pretty good as well. They are now 1-1. They had a pretty nice win last week versus the Texans. Defensively, they've looked all right. Offensively, they have looked really good, though, and Anthony Richardson has looked really good. Shane Steichen is using him perfectly. He's really using his talents and running with them, and he's turning him into like a Jalen Hurts type quarterback, very mobile. We've seen him run the ball a lot. He already had like 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns, which is kind of how we expected him to use him, just because he is such a good athlete. However, being realistic, I do not see the Colts going into Baltimore and beating them. I think the Ravens win comfortably here. The Ravens have looked really good, and Anthony Richardson is now in concussion protocol as well, which could definitely hurt this Colts team if he's not ready to go by Sunday. Moving on, we have the Broncos heading into Miami. The Broncos blew a very embarrassing lead to the Commanders. They had a 21-3. It might have even been 24-3. I can't remember, but it was either 21 or 24-3 lead over the Commanders at home last week, and they blew the lead. They ended up losing 35-33. And the only reason they had 33 points was because on the last play of the game, they actually had a Hail Mary that was converted, and then they failed to get the 2-point attempt to send it into overtime. Really, the Broncos looked very bad on defense last week. Offensively, it was kind of the opposite. Offense was really rolling. They had a lot of great deep balls. balls to Marvin Mims and some other receivers. Defensively was the main struggle, and that Commanders offense looked really good. And I think part of that is because this Commanders offense is pretty underrated. I think Sam Howell looked great. He was making some incredible throws last week, but then this defense kind of collapsed for the Broncos as well. And it was, at the end of the day, it was just a very embarrassing lead to blow. It was either an 18 or 21 point lead, and to blow that to the Commanders at home is just not something to, be proud of. It's not something to, ever want to look back at. So coming in with a lot of, no momentum at all for the Broncos. The Dolphins coming off of a big win over the Patriots last week, 24-17. They looked pretty good. The Patriots kind of limited the big explosive plays last week, but the ground game looked great. Raheem Mostert had like 150 yards and 2 TDs, and Tua looked great. So I do have the Dolphins winning this one. It could be an interesting matchup between this Broncos secondary, which is pretty good, and then this Dolphins, receiving core and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That could be a good matchup, but overall I do have the Dolphins winning this one in a comfortable win. Moving on to my New England Patriots taking on the New York Jets, the first away game for the Patriots. And the Patriots really have no momentum right now, and I'd say the Jets don't either. They're coming off of a pretty bad loss to the Cowboys, and then the Patriots 0-2, losing both of their first home games of the season. So really no momentum for either of these teams here, and really both of these teams desperately needing this win. I do have my Patriots winning this game, though. I think offensively this is going to be a big test for both teams, two great defenses going at it. And I think especially for this Patriots offense that has shown really good flashes against two pretty good defenses in the Eagles and the Dolphins, but there really hasn't been that stability there. There's been a couple great drives by Mac Jones in this offense, but they need the offensive stability, and they're going up against a great Jets secondary, great Jets defensive front. All over this Jets defense is great, and I think this is going to be a big test for this Patriots offense. I do have them winning, though. The Jets are pretty bad against the Patriots. I mean, even last year, the Jets were really horrible against this Patriots defense, and I know Bill Belichick is going to give Zach Wilson a lot of problems against the secondary, and I think that will be, a big key factor. But I do think the big key factor here is this Patriots offense taking on this Jets defense, but I do have the Patriots winning this one in a low-scoring but close game. And then finally, our last AFC versus AFC game of the week, we have the Steelers and the Raiders. Now, the Raiders coming off of a pretty bad loss to the Bills. Meanwhile, the Steelers coming off of a pretty big upset win over the Browns, or at least I think it was an upset win. I don't think a lot of people expected them to win. However, I do have the Raiders winning this game. I know that might be kind of a bold take, I'm not sure, but I think this Raiders offense is pretty good. They struggled a lot last week, but I do think this Raiders offense gets rolling again. I think this defensive front for the Raiders is pretty good. I could see the Steelers winning this game. I think this is going to be a big test for the Steelers offense going up against a not so great Steelers defense, and to see how they can really get rolling, because, again, the offensive stability, same thing with the Patriots for the Steelers. There really is that, last week versus the Browns, they showed a lot of high flashes, some, nice plays to Pickens and throughout the field, but then there's also, a lot of bad throws by Kenny Pickett. The offensive line looks bad, and they really need to get that offensive stability. So this could be a good game, but I do have the Raiders winning it in a close one. Moving on to our AFC versus NFC game, starting off with the Bills at the Commanders. Now, both of these teams looked really good last week. The Commanders came back from a 24-3 they were losing 24-3. They came back from a 24-3 deficit, and they beat the Broncos away. That was very impressive to me. Sam Howell and that offense looked incredible. Sam Howell was throwing absolute dots, and the defense looked pretty good. At first the defense was giving up a lot of big plays, but the secondary really locked in later in the game. The pass rush was great. They had 7 sacks on Russell Wilson last week. Same thing for the Bills. The Bills looked great coming off of a pretty embarrassing Week 1 loss. They looked great offensively. I think they held Josh Jacobs like -2 rush yards, which was very impressive. Offensively, they looked great. The ground game looked great. Josh Allen looked great. He was throwing dimes as well. And so this could be a much better game than people are expecting. I know a lot of people are writing this off as kind of a boring game, or, the Bills by 30, but I think this could be a really good game, especially if this Commanders defense can continue to play at an elite level. I'm very high on this Commanders defense. I think this is one of the best defensive fronts in the league versus a pretty mediocre Bills offensive line. I think that could be something to watch out for. If they can get a lot of pressure on Josh Allen, that could be a problem for them. He could start panicking in the pocket, and we've seen how that goes. So I think that is a big factor, is this Commanders defensive front versus Josh Allen and this Bills O-line. That is something to watch out for. But in reality, I do have the Bills winning this game. I think they have a really good defense, and this is actually a good test I'm excited to see as well. Sam Howell and this Commanders offense, which I think has a lot of potential under Eric Bieniemy. I've been very high on this Commanders team in general, taking on this pretty good this Bills defense. So I think that could be a good a good battle to watch. But I do have the Bills winning this game. But I do think this could be a good game, and I do think people could be surprised at how good and how close the Commanders come to getting a dub here. Moving on to our next game, we have the Chargers versus the Vikings. This game could end up being 55-55. This is going to be a shootout. Two great offenses versus two horrible defenses that have looked pretty bad through these first 2 weeks. And I am very torn on who to choose here. I've kind of been going back and forth at it. It's crazy to say, but the Chargers could end up being 0-3 here. I think they have a very good shot at ending up 0-3 after this game, but the Vikings also 0-2. One of these teams needs a win desperately. Two high-powered offenses, and I'm actually going to give it to the LA Chargers. I was kind of riding with the Vikings for a little bit, kind of thinking they could definitely get the dub here, and I think it's very possible. I would not be surprised at all, but in the end of the day, I do think this Chargers defense is a lot better. I think this Chargers defense has such a high ceiling. On paper, they have such a good defense, one of the best in the league, great secondary, some great pass rushers, but they really have underperformed this season and a lot in prior seasons as well. Hopefully, though, that can be the difference. The difference maker is them having, I think, a much better defense than this Vikings defense. Both have been pretty bad this season so far, but I do think this Chargers defense will perform just high enough to get this offense, to contain this offense. But I do think it will be a shootout either way, though. But I do have the Chargers winning in a close one, but a high-scoring game. Moving on, we have the Chiefs taking on the Bears in Arrowhead Stadium. This one, Chiefs by 40. This is not my lock of the week. I have one game I'm a little more sold on, but I don't think there's a whole lot to say here. This Bears offense has looked horrible, and really the main problem has been Justin Fields. I know everybody wants to talk about how bad this offensive line is, but there were several times last week where Justin Fields had plenty of time in the pocket, and he either completely missed his throw, or he decided to run it for no reason when he had a wide open DJ Moore or Darnell Mooney. Justin Fields really has horrible decision making right now, and until that sees even slight improvement, I'm picking anyone else but the Bears. Chiefs, they looked great defensively. They looked really solid last week. Chris Jones looked amazing pressuring Trevor Lawrence. Offensively, he was a little bit slower, but I do expect them to pick it up. Travis Kelce still coming off of that knee injury, and especially against this Bears defense, which is pretty bad. I do expect this Chiefs offense to get rolling. Chiefs by 40. On to our last AFC versus NFC game, we have the Rams taking on the Bengals. This could actually be a really big game for both of these teams. The Bengals have looked horrible for the first 2 weeks. This offense really just doesn't seem to be on the right page. Joe Burrow now suffering an apparent calf injury too, and it's unclear if he's going to be ready to go for week 3 versus the Rams. The Rams, on the other hand, have looked really good. They had the big win week 1 over the Seahawks, and then week 2, they did lose to the Niners, but they hung in there till the last minute, 30-23. And this is a game where I could definitely see the Rams winning, especially without Joe Burrow potentially for the Bengals. I want to say the Rams could win, and I'm very torn on this because Sean McVay has really done an amazing job coaching this team this year, especially on a team that was really written off as going to be one of the worst this year, losing Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp out for the first 4 weeks. This team has really bounced back and really proved to people that they are definitely contenders. Kind of to me like the Seahawks last year, written off as one of the worst teams, and then they had that big year. That to me kind of is how the Rams are playing it right now. I don't want to overreact that that's going to be done this whole year, but they have looked really good, and I don't see any reason why they can't keep it up. And I really want to go the Rams here, and I would not be surprised if the Rams did get the win here. However, I'm going to go the Bengals as long as Joe Burrow's healthy and ready to go, which it's unclear if he is or not. But if he is healthy, I can't see them losing 3 straight games, 2 straight at home, and then going 0-3 to the Rams. I can't see it happening. It's definitely a possibility, and if Joe Burrow's not ready to go week 3, I think that is a major concern, and I think that definitely gives the Rams a much better shot. But I am going to go with the Bengals here, kind of almost out of biasy, just that I just can't see the Bengals losing at home versus the Rams to go 0-3, but it's possible. But hopefully this is the week this Bengals offense can get going, and they're going to need to get going because this Rams offense has looked really good so far, and they're going to need to get going to compete with them. So I do have the Bengals winning this game, but it's going to be a close one. Moving on to Thursday Night Football, we have the Giants going into San Francisco, and I have the 49ers winning by 30 this game. Saquon Barkley and Andrew Thomas are both out for this Giants offense. The 49ers defense might put up 40 points versus this Giants offense. I know it's going to be an absolute defensive fest for this 49ers defense, the best defense in the league right now versus an offense that has really struggled. I know they looked pretty good in the second half versus the Cardinals in that impressive comeback win. I'm not very impressed by that, though. It's the Cardinals, one of the worst defenses in the league, and now without Andrew Thomas and Saquon Barkley, it's going to be really rough for this Giants offense. Meanwhile, this 49ers defense is the best in the league right now. Offensively, this 49ers offense has looked really good as well. Purdy's looked great. The O-lines look pretty good. Christian McCaffrey is looking like an absolute beast right now. And I have the 49ers winning this one in a very comfortable win over the Giants. Up next, we have the Falcons going into Detroit, and this is one of those games where it could go either way. The Falcons coming off of a pretty impressive comeback win over the Packers to go 2-0. The Lions coming off of a pretty hard overtime loss to the Seahawks at home. I do have the Lions rebounding this week. I do have them getting the win. Hopefully this offense can, the offenses look pretty good. They are going up against a pretty good Falcons defense, though, pretty good secondary, so that will be an interesting kind of matchup, this Falcons offense versus the Lions offense versus the Falcons secondary. And then, offensively for the Falcons, they actually looked pretty good last week. Bijan Robinson's looking like an absolute monster right now. This Lions defense looked pretty bad last week, so it will be interesting to see how Desmond Ridder looks passing the ball. But I think this could actually be one of the more higher scoring games this week. I know the Falcons offense doesn't really, wow a lot of people sometimes, but I think this could be a pretty high scoring game for the Falcons going up against a pretty bad Lions defense, or at least that's what they looked like last week. And now with CJ Gardner-Johnson and James Houston both on the IR, or at least both out for this week. I'm not sure if they're on the IR, but I know they're at least both out for this week, so that will be a big factor for the Lions. And this is one of those where I really could see it going either way. I definitely could see the Falcons winning this game. I think they could, easily rush for 300 yards here against a pretty bad Lions defensive front. But I do have the Lions winning. I think the offense is the main key for the Lions here. And I think as long as they can be consistent, as long as Jared Goff and this offense can be consistent, I do think they will beat the Falcons. Moving on to the Saints going into Green Bay. The Packers coming off of a pretty embarrassing blown lead late in the game to the Falcons, resulting in them losing. Aaron Jones will be back for the Packers, or is expected to be back for the Packers this week, which will be big to help this run game and take some of the pressure off of Jordan Love, who's actually looked really good through the first 2 weeks of the season. But I do have the Saints winning this game. Defensively, I think they're a much better team, and I think it will be interesting to see how Jordan Love goes against this pretty good Saints defense. I think the Saints offense, though, is a big key. I think the Saints have a really good offense this year. It's a very underrated offense, but I do think they definitely have the advantage here over the Packers defense, and I do have the Saints winning this game. But I think it could be a good game. I think it could be a low-scoring game, but I do have the Saints winning this game. Up next, we have the Panthers going into Seattle. So much has gone wrong for this Panthers team so far defensively. Jaycee Horn got placed on IR last week, and then Shaq Thompson seems like he just hurt his ankle and is definitely going to be out for a long period of time versus the Saints last week. So those are two major losses for this Panthers defense. Offensively, they've really struggled. The receiving core hasn't looked great, and then the offensive line has struggled a lot as well. And it's pretty hard for your quarterback to develop when you have a pretty bad offensive line and your receiving core is very mediocre at best. The Seahawks, on the other hand, really turned it around in week 2, got a very big win over the Lions, which I don't think a lot of people were predicting or saw coming. The offense looked great. The defense looked pretty good as well. I know they kind of struggled. They did have a big pick 6, though, which was the real momentum turner in that game. And I do think the Seahawks win this game versus the Panthers. I think defensively they keep their momentum going over a pretty bad Panthers offense, and then offensively for the Seahawks, I think they're going to do great. I mean, they're going up against a pretty bad Panthers defense without Jaycee Horn and Shaq Thompson. And then, I think it's a very good receiving core, and then without your main secondary piece and Jaycee Horn there, I think the Seahawks will have a pretty good game versus the Panthers, and I do have the Seahawks winning this game. Moving on to my lock of the week, I have the Cowboys over the Cardinals. I don't even think there's much to say about this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys shut out the Cardinals and even put up a few defensive touchdowns of their own. This is one of the biggest mismatches we might see all season, this Cowboys defense going up against this Cardinals offense. I know the Cardinals look pretty impressive in the first half versus the Giants, but after that, offensively and defensively, they really died out, and especially after that loss, losing a 20-0 lead, I just don't think there's really any momentum now. If they won that game, I think there would have been some momentum, but especially after losing, after having such a big lead, I don't think there's any momentum, and I have the Dallas Cowboys by 50 in this game. Offensively, the Cowboys have looked really good. Defensively, they're one of the best defenses in the league. And overall, this Cowboys team, I do think it has a really promising season overall. And then, defensively, I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if they put up a few touchdowns of their own. My lock of the week is the Cowboys over the Cardinals, and I do have the Cowboys winning this game by at least 50. I think the Cowboys, it's going to be ugly, but I do have the Cowboys winning this game over the Cardinals. And then finally, to conclude Week 3 Monday Night Football, we have the Eagles taking on the Buccaneers in Tampa. I have the Eagles winning this game, but I think it could be close. This Buccaneers team has really looked impressive through 2 weeks. This defense, which is really quietly a good defense, I think this defense has done really good. And then offensively, they look really good as well. Baker Mayfield's looked really good. This receiving core still looks really good. Mike Evans looks great. Chris Godwin looks great. And I do think it will be a pretty good game, but I do have the Eagles winning this game. I think as long as this offensive line can, hold up against a pretty good Buccaneers defensive line, but I do think, the Eagles have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the league, and I think as long as they give Jalen Hurts time, I think this receiving core for the Eagles is going to torch this Buccaneers secondary, which, kind of the weak spot on this Buccaneers team. So I think offensively for the Bucs, it could be a good game. I think, Baker Mayfield's looked really good. This receiving core has looked really good. The only problem is they really haven't been put up against a good defense yet. They've played the Vikings and the Bears. I think this will be a big test for the Buccaneers to see if they really do, have a shot, if they really are contenders, if they really have looked pretty good, or, if it was just the mismatches they were going up against the first 2 weeks. But I do think it could be a good game. I think, like I said, it will be a big test for this Buccaneers team. But I do have this Eagles team winning over the Buccaneers to conclude week 3. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know in the comments below what you guys agreed with, what you guys didn't agree with. Also, let me know if there's any videos you want to see besides this, because all I've been doing is my weekly prediction videos, and I haven't really had time to do any other videos. But if there's any types of videos you guys want me to post, either about college football or about the NFL, let me know, and I will try to post those throughout the week. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think, again, of the video and what you guys agreed with, what you guys didn't agree with. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Lots more content coming throughout the season. I'm going to start posting a lot more videos as well, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Jay Lay, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.